I am Angus Smokewalker with the Smokewalker family, and we distill small batch frankincense oil. I've taken you through a complete distillation this week, but what I want to share now is I want to share my lab notes. Every week these notes change, and there's slight variables into my distillation process because I'm trying to perfect it. So this time we used 8 kilos of black sacred frankincense with 7 gallons of water. I soaked that inside the still for 3 days before the distillation process. This time I didn't use the copper mesh on the bottom because I wanted to see if the resin would burn to the bottom of the still, if any. At 10:52 a.m. we prepared to distill. I had 49 pounds of ice in a cooler that was ready to go into the condenser. At 11 a.m. the still is placed on the large burner, which is my 35,000 BTU burner, and we begin the process. At 12 o'clock, the water begins to boil, and we transfer the still to the stovetop burner, which is my 10,000 BTU burner. I pack the condenser full of ice all the way to the top, fill it with water, but I don't have the water flowing through the condenser. At 12:15, we've already had the first drop of essential oil come out. Very fast. At 12:39, the inner chamber of the separator is full. At 3:40, I begin the first pull of oil out of the separator. That first pull of oil was 500 milliliters. At this point, I am done packing that condenser full of ice. I turn the water on. I let that water run up through the condenser and out. The rest of the process, we're just gonna cycle with this cold spring water from my well on my land. At 4:26, more oil is now being pulled off. We get another 50 milliliters of oil at that time for a total of 550 milliliters of oil. At 5:38, I do another pull of oil, another 50 milliliters of oil for a total of 600 milliliters of oil. At 7 o'clock, I start pulling the hydrosol off because I pulled a majority of that oil off. And to note, with the ice, it's only important for that first section because that's where most of your oil is going to come off at. At 11 o'clock at night, I pull off the hydrosol. I empty the hydrosol from the copper vessel into the bucket, and I prepare to let that run for the rest of the night. This is when I get my mat. I prepare to sleep down here, and I let that run all the way through the night. I get up in the morning, I check everything, and I end up ending this process at 11 a.m. the following morning